Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Those that have swam here, because we are in Southern California and we're experiencing such great weather. You heard the old adage, it never rains in California? It's a lie. It's raining in California, cats and dogs. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to those in the Facebook world, and especially to my dear friends that are here joining me live. I really appreciate it. Well, this is class number 1 on Advice for Life, the Rebbe's guidance to living a more purposeful life. For the next 6 weeks, ladies and gentlemen, think about it, 6 short weeks, an hour and a half every week, you are going to get such expert advice that you're not even going to know what to do with it. It's going to be so good. So 6 weeks we're going to spend here starting at 7:30, or I'm sorry for the late start this evening. Again, I'm blaming it all on the rain. Everything is the rain. But we're going to start on time, and we're going to go for 6 weeks. Okay, what are we going to do with everybody here? Okay, welcome everybody. Shalom Aleichem. So, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, for those that don't know, haven't experienced him, or haven't heard about him, although I doubt that if you're listening to me, or if you have ever attended a Chabad service anywhere around the world, that you haven't heard about the Rebbe, let me give you just a small little brief biography of the Rebbe. Okay. You know what, ladies? Everyone have a seat, and then we'll figure out the books later on. Diane, can you share with Evelyn here, and you give Charlotte the book, and Charlotte, okay, yeah, you can share with Susan if you don't mind. Okay, now everybody's good. Okay, so let me give you a little brief introduction of who the Rebbe is and why we are going to spend the next 6 weeks listening to his advice on all different topics of life. We're going to take 6 aspects of life, starting with work, and then working our way into family bliss, health, emotional health, adversity, and of course spirituality. All of those things we're going to listen to what the Rebbe, through his letters, through his teachings, through his writings, expressed, and then we're going to glean out his experience and his brilliance. Okay, so the Rebbe. He was born in 1902 in the Nikolaev in the Ukraine. His father and his mother were living there, and his father was the rabbi of the town. He was a great Kabbalist, Rebbe Yitzchak Schneerson, and he had 3 sons, of which the Rebbe was the oldest. The Rebbe was, from early on, you could tell that he was, he had an exceptionally good head, and he was very studious, to the point that his mother, had to pay friends to drag him out to play soccer, literally drag him out of the house, to kick the ball around, At an early age, at 15 or 16, the teachers in town told his father, it's like, there's no one really here to teach him. So he spent the next several years just learning with his father and on his own, and maybe 1 or 2 other teachers in town. But eventually he moved out. He was always a strong chassid and a follower of Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, the previous Chabad Rebbe, who was a distant cousin of his. And he went to join him in the early 1920s, and eventually became engaged to the Rebbe's daughter, another Schneerson, who was kind of a distant cousin, 4th cousin. And in 1929 they married, and his parents unfortunately were not able to come to his wedding. They were still in the Soviet Union. He got married in Poland, and shortly afterwards the young couple moved to Berlin. And he went to university, which was extremely uncommon among Hasidim. Who went to university? Nobody. University was if you were like modern Orthodox or you were not Orthodox. But a Hasidic rabbi, and a brilliant Hasidic rabbi, who went to university, but that was the path that he chose with the advice of his father-in-law. And he studied a number of years in Berlin, and then when the war broke out, they moved to France.
What year was that?
So this is 1929 and the early 30s. In the early 30s, he moved to Berlin, and then war broke out, and then so maybe in the late 30s or something, they were living there, and then they moved to France for a number. As Nazism was rising, they moved to France, and then they went to Paris, and in 1941 they left Paris on a ship that he came to the United States. His father-in-law already had made it to the United States previously, the previous year in 1940. Now the Rebbe had a degree in electrical engineering, so when he came to the United States, I think the first job that he took was at the Brooklyn Naval Yard. He took a job as an electrical engineer working for the war effort. And then the United States was already at war, so he was working for a little time. But then his father-in-law said to him, this is not really your destiny. Your destiny is not to work in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Your destiny is to work with me in Lubavitch, in Chabad. And for the next years, he worked side by side with his father-in-law, mainly in the publishing arm of Chabad. That's what he loved. I mean, he just loved books. I mean, books were his best friend. I mean, anytime he saw a book, and if you gave the Rebbe a book, you knew that the Rebbe was going to devour it. And he had this brilliant memory that he only needed, there was one look through, and, so those were these. And you have letters. We have letters that the Rebbe wrote during those years, and mostly they were connected with, publishing this book and getting this book out and all of that stuff. 1950, his father-in-law passed away, and he took over the leadership of the Chabad movement. Now, when I say the leadership of the Chabad movement, I'm talking about a very small movement at the time, relatively. I mean, the first public gathering that he spoke at was in the winter of, 50, of Yud Shvat, must have been like 51, winter of 51, and there was maybe upstairs, if you went into the main shul in 770, upstairs in the little hall, maybe there was 100 people there that could fit, easily in the room, and that's how we started, and it grew. Let's just say that. So it grew and it grew and it grew and it grew, and it kept growing. And the Rebbe's whole idea was, to spread Yiddishkeit, to go out there, and he sent messengers in the United States and all over the world. I make a long story short, you can read any biography, you go online. I'm not going to go into every detail, but by the time that he passed away in 1994, and today, there's about 5,000 emissaries around the world in 3,500 Chabad institutions, all over the world, in Asia, and Africa, and America, and Europe, South America, everywhere you go, you'll find a Chabad guy, and if you're not looking, they'll find you. Okay, that's the way it works. So, because there's many letters of the Rebbe sending, emissaries to this remote place to find this one Jew that's living over there, and and the guy says, I moved here to get away from you guys. And so the Rebbe will never let you escape. You could forget about it. He's going to find you, and that's the way it is. And over the years, of course, he established many different, projects. The Tefillin campaign in 1967 for men to put on Tefillin. 1975, the women's campaign of lighting Shabbos candles. And on through the years, a number of different campaigns that he started. He was very involved with Israel. Very, very involved with the politics in Israel. He had his own philosophy and how Israel should be run, of course, and how they should manage the Arab situation and the war situation. The Rebbe was very opinionated. Menachem Begin, the prime minister, came to visit him. Many generals came to visit him. Politicians came to visit him. And all of this was done without him ever moving out of his office. I mean, you have to think about this for a second. I mean, he never left his office. When I say didn't leave his office, I mean, he never left New York City. Meaning, if you wanted to see him, you had to come. He didn't travel anywhere. He never went to see anybody. He never went to make any meetings anywhere. He was a self-contained person. That's it. This is where I am, and this is who I am. And come in. If you want to see me, you have to come. So in the early years, people did come to see him. There used to be long lines. He would see people twice a week. Called Yechidus, which was a private audience with him. It could last from 30 seconds up to 30 minutes, if you, or something like that. I myself personally had 5 times Yechidus with the Rebbe. I was able to go in, but mine were very short. I mean, be honest with you. Mine were not 30 minutes. My first one was in 1966. I was 10 years old. My father had taken me for the first time to New York. Then we were able to get in to see the Rebbe, and the Rebbe asked me a few questions. And then that was that. Thank you. Next. Thank you. And the last time was when I went in with my wife, Chani, before our wedding. We were able to go in to see him. And after that, the Rebbe kind of almost stopped seeing people privately because it got too much. But what he did do is in 1986, instead of seeing people privately in his office, he had what they called the dollars, where every Sunday he would come out and he would stand there for a few hours and hand out a dollar bill as a blessing to everyone that wanted one. So you could imagine the lines. There were thousands of people would come by, and the Rebbe would stand there and give each one $1 and a blessing, $1 and a blessing, $1 and a blessing. And then, of course, if you had something you needed to say, which was not encouraged, because they kept you moving quickly along, you could say something to the Rebbe, but it had to be unless he wanted to talk to you, then of course all bets are off, and then of course no one was going to bother you. But if he didn't want to talk to you, then they would just keep you going, nicely, politely, but they had a way of moving the line along. Otherwise, the Rebbe could have been there till Tuesday, But the fascinating part about it, and we'll get into the class in a moment, the fascinating part about it is if you ever had a chance to stand there on a Sunday and just watch the different elements of people that walked by. It wasn't only Hasidim, it was religious people, non-religious people, it was Jewish and non-Jewish people even came for the Rebbe's blessings. It was all, the entire Jewish gamut, was there to come to us. And the miraculous thing was, when you walked by, even though it was 3 seconds or even less, you just felt that at that moment the Rebbe was talking to you. When he gave you the blessing, bracha v'atzlacha, he was just penetrating in you and just looking at you and focusing on you. And that was just a unique characteristic of him. And he would be able to, this has been documented, he was able to remember conversations he had with someone 20 years ago. If someone walked by and the Rebbe recognized him, and he would say to him, 20 years ago you asked me about business, how's your business going? And I told you then, no. And it was like and people would come out of there and say, how? The man met thousands of people since seeing me. How in the world does he remember that he met me 20 years ago? We had a conversation about business. The Rebbe's asked me about business, or about a daughter who wasn't well. And he says, how's your daughter doing? And people were astounded. But this was an unnatural characteristics of a person, besides the spiritual aspect of him, but just the characteristic of being able to remember names and faces of people. It was just an incredible. Well, so you could imagine that the Rebbe wrote letters, the Rebbe spoke publicly, and the Rebbe also communicated verbally with people. And all of those things are gathered in this next 6 weeks. Now, we're not going to go through everything the Rebbe ever taught. That would probably take us 7 or 8 lifetimes, because right now there's about 300 volumes printed of the Rebbe's talks. 300 volumes. 300 volumes. There's 23 volumes just of his letters. And there's thousands. The Rebbe must have spoken publicly for 15,000 hours. Many of them, of course, were on Shabbat, which were not recorded, or on the holidays, but those are part of the 300 volumes that are there. But what JLI has done is they've taken some of the most important parts of how we as American Jews live, and struggle with aspects, and have given us the kind of comprehensive overview on how the Rebbe looked at the world. Go ahead, Norma.
Can we go back and let's say the next day or 2 days, print out what was said on?
Yeah, that's what they used to do. What they used to do is once the Rebbe finished publicly speaking, they would have scribes that after Shabbos would write everything down, and then that's how they would get his teachings on paper. So
also done by guys with great brains.
Yeah, obviously you had people that were very smart that could remember, that could Rebbe spoke sometimes for 5-6 hours.
Well, the Argentinian president.
The Argentinian president is a Lubavitcher almost. He's almost a Chabad follower, almost. So that was Rebbe. So, but the key here is, that is important for us, is not to remember him by the names that he remembered or the faces that he remembered. The key to remember about him, and why it's important to listen to his words of advice, is unlike David Henry Thoreau wrote, that the mass of men live lives of quiet desperation. Okay, that means that you go through life. You're in a no thrill jobs. You're in a no win relationship. You have no nachas from anybody. Most people are just walking through life. The Rebbe lived life with gusto. Literally, the Rebbe lived every day of his life with purpose and meaning. That was key number 1. Key number 2, which is probably more important, is we live a dualistic life. We have to admit to ourselves that, what we are in shul is not what we are at home. I mean, you come to shul, you're nice, everybody's smiling, you're good. Or, you come Yom Kippur, you see everybody in shul, especially by our shul, everybody's davening nicely, they're praying, Hashamnu Baganu, please, God forgive me. And then it's over. Okay, then it's gone. Then you come Shabbos, nice. So we live dualistic lives, even when it comes to Torah and mitzvahs. Many of us are observant, but our observance reaches a certain level of observance. If you ask somebody, about, how deep does it go? There's going to be a lot of different levels, even if among observant Jews, how deep your faith is. The Rebbe lived a non-dualistic life. To him, there was no separation between his spiritual life and his materialistic life. Nothing. Zero. It's not like I'm on vacation, so what I'm going to do? I'll take it a little easy. I'm not going to go to the minyan or, my Torah study, which I normally do. I'm not going to do because I'm on vacation. Okay, fine, good. I mean, good for you. I mean, I'm all for it. The Rebbe didn't live a life like that. The Rebbe, to him, was a non-dualistic life. To him, Torah was real, and every minute of the day, it meant something to him. Meaning that there's no separation. When he was eating, it was a Torah eating. When he was speaking Torah, it was Torah study. When he was in his office studying, that's who it was. He lived a non-dualistic life, and that's why his advice to us comes from a place that most people are never there. So when people asked him, how do you have this courage? You give advice on medicine. What are you, a doctor? Or you give advice on legal matters. You're a lawyer. So the Rebbe said, listen, I want to tell you something. When you build a house, right? What do? What's the first thing you need when you build a house? Blueprints. You can't build a house without blueprints, right? Who's the master of the blueprinters? The architect. Okay, the architect then has to tell the plumber what to do, and he has to tell the roofer what to do, and he has to tell the electrician what to do. But the guy that reads the plans is the architect. I know how to read the plans. That's what the Rebbe said. How did he know how to read the plans? Because everything comes from the Torah. The Rebbe believed that everything in the world is connected to the Almighty. There's nothing, absolutely nothing, that happens in this world outside of God's purview. Nothing. Zero. If it happens, it comes from God, and God has a hand in it. And because he was so in tune to that kind of thinking and living, so he looked at things very differently than I shouldn't say a normal person, than an average person, right? So an average person like we live a life like take it easy, work hard, go on vacation, do this. To the Rebbe, there was no such thing. There was no such thing. It was, wake up and get the day going. And that's the way, and that's what it is. So we have to keep that in mind, because everything that's going to be set for the next 6 weeks is going to be focused towards that avenue, going to be funneled through that kind of a prism of how the Rebbe looked at the world. Okay, all right. So now we got a little course overview, and I just want to tell you one story before we get into the topic tonight. So in 1978, he suffers a heart attack. It was on Shmini Atzeres. It was during the Hakafot. They were dancing in 770. It was a highlight. I happened to be there that night, and everybody was joyous. And then all of a sudden, the Rebbe's not feeling well. He had to sit down during the dancing, which was unusual to see. People were worried. The doctors were rushing in again. Anyways, it turns out the Rebbe had suffered a heart attack that evening. I don't know how he did this, but he finished. He finished the dancing. He himself even danced the last hakafa, but then he went upstairs to his office. Okay, so of course everybody rushed in. They called the doctor. They did it. Anyways, a group of doctors were in the office with the Rebbe, and they wanted the Rebbe to go to a hospital. When you're suffering a serious heart attack, the doctors told the Rebbe, you got to go to the hospital. The Rebbe refused. So the doctor said, well, we're the doctors. You're the Rebbe. We're telling you got to go to the... So the Rebbe said, how ironic is it? The Rebbe said to them that you guys, for years, have been writing questions to me, asking my advice medically, for relationship-wise, and everything you listen to me. And tonight you don't want to listen to me? Tonight you're not going to listen to me? So they said, you're right, Rebbe. Okay. They said they're not going to move this man. He happened to have a very stubborn streak to him, a holy stubborn streak. Very holy stubborn streak. And he wouldn't go, so they made a hospital office. But that was his attitude. If something has to be done, it has to be done. And he was there in 770, and thank God, he survived, and then he thrived afterwards. And that's something I want you to think. So tonight we're going to talk about careers, work, and money. Okay, what the Rebbe thought about career, work, and money. Now, you can read the book yourself. This is not German philosophy, like Immanuel Kant's critique of pure reason, where you're going to need some explanation. But we're just going to go through some of the things, and we'll read some of the texts of how the Rebbe. So, work in America, to most of us, if you ask American, you took a survey. What do you think of work? Oh, so think of work. What are you kidding me? The only reason why I work is for one purpose. So at the end of the week, I get that check, and with that check, I pay my bills. That's it. Do you enjoy work? Somewhat. Reasonable. It depends upon which company you're working for. But most people, many people look at work as a necessary evil. Basically, we do it because to get us going from point A to point B. You want to be able to vacation in Europe, you got to pay your bill. You want to drive a nice car, you got to be able to pay. How are you going to be able to do that? Now, how do we know that this is so? Because you see something very interesting that we have here in America, and they have it probably around the world as well, but we think of it in America firstly, is the lottery. Think about the lottery for a second. Why in the world would you take your hard-earned money, your hard-earned money that you work with sweat and brow and squirm and cry and bleed for, give it to a guy that you don't know, to win to go into a raffle that the possibility of you winning is less than me making a 3-point shot in the NBA Finals. Okay? There's a bigger possibility that I will be in Staples Center and the coach will say, Perlmutter, you're in. And I'm going to go in there and I'm going to get the ball and the NBA Finals and make a 3-point shot. The possibilities are about the same. Okay? Give or take 1 percentage point or so. Why? And the interesting part is that as the sum keeps climbing, what do most people do? Buy more. Okay? Think about that. Think about it. So when it's 10 million, 10 million, what am I going to do with 10 million? It's not going to change my life. 10 million. First of all, you have to give half to the government. And then I have kids that will steal the rest. Okay? So I'm going to be left with nothing after 10 million. Okay? So I'm not going to invest. But when it hits 900 million, now I'm in. Now I'm interested in, because think about it. Why? So why do we invest all this money? You spend $1 billion to win money. In order to do what? Not to work. Except there's one guy, I remember a few years ago, he won like $300 million and he said, no, I'm going to go back to work the next day. Yeah. That lasted, you know how long? 2 days. Okay, 2 days. And then he said, really? I'm going to go be a machinist in Dayton, Ohio, because I have 300 million. We do that. Why? Because most of us look at work as a burden. We don't want to enjoy waking up. That's why we have what we call in America the Monday blues. Thank you. The Monday blues. Why? Because we realize, shucks, I am not on vacation anymore. I'm back to work. Okay? And listen, but that's common sense. Because we as human beings enjoy pleasure. It's the pleasure pain principle, right? It's very simple. In any psychology class, those things that bring you pleasure, you're going to be attracted to. Those things that bring you pain. So you want to be in a place where your boss is constantly nagging you, never happy with what you work, always telling you you're a teacher, you get no satisfaction. The kids in the classroom drive you crazy. The parents then drive you crazy. The principal squeezes you till no return. So who, what, when, and where? So what? So if that's the way you look at work, and then you thrive when you go on vacation. You thrive when the weekend comes, and that's what it is. And that's what most of us feel like work. So People used to write into the Rebbe, what do you think about work? What do you think about work? Okay, so in a minute we'll get to what the Rebbe meant, what the Rebbe's idea of work was. But before we get there, I want to talk a little bit about money, because that's the root of all evil, isn't it? Yeah. The money is the root of all evil, and it is something that's very interesting, because if you look at the Torah has a very interesting viewpoint on wealth. Okay? On one hand, what does God say? If you follow my rules, regulations, and do all other things, what am I going to do for you? I am going to give you everything that you want. All of your calves will give birth. None of your cows are going to be barren. Your olives are going to be ripe, and your peaches are going to be sweet, and everything is going to go, is going to go well for you, right? On one hand, that's what God tells us. You take care of me, and what am I going to do for you? I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to take care of you. Okay, quid pro quo in the Torah, no questions about that. No limits. Does God put a limit on how much we could make? Absolutely not. God says you want to have 10 cows, have 10 cows, 100 cows, 100 cows. I don't care. And here's the kicker, because this is what happens. We come into the land of Israel, and we're successful. Yeah, good for me. Hey, you know what? I'm a good farmer. I'm industrious. So you know what? Perlmutter, the next door, he doesn't care so much. I buy off his piece of property. Then Cheryl wants to retire. I buy her piece of property. Before I know it, I own now 10 pieces of property, and I'm the big shot in this little locale. Okay, the little locale, and I'm thriving. God warns us. Remember, the moment I give you success, and you are going to start thriving, what's the natural inclination? To start thinking, who made me this fortune? I made this fortune. God says in the Torah, my strength and my power made me this fortune. The natural inclination. Moshe Rabbeinu, at the end of his life, one of the last days that he's on earth, says to the Jewish people, as Dinu Hashemayim v'adabeira, listen, heavens, and I'm going to tell you something, what's going to happen at the end of days. And be careful, because this is something that is going to trap you. You're going to come into the land of Israel, and you're going to be successful, because God is going to shower his blessings upon you. And then what's going to happen? You're going to get fat and lazy. You're going to get fat and lazy. And what happens when you get fat and lazy, then all of a sudden, your heart becomes hardened, your ears becomes closed, and you don't care about anything anymore. You don't realize what happens, that who was the giver of the blessing? Who gave you all of this? Not Hashem. What do you mean Hashem? What did Hashem have to do with it? I stood out there in the dark. I was out there in the morning, in the threshing and plowing and all of that stuff. Me, I was the one that did that. I was the one. The perfect example is in the Torah. We mentioned a few times during the year when we talk about Torah class, is that, the mitzvah of challah. It's a very easy mitzvah. What is it? It's when someone makes a dough, you take a piece of the challah and give it to the Kohen. Right next to it, juxtaposed is the sin of idolatry. So commentators ask, why do you put the two together? Why do you juxtapose challah next to idolatry? To tell you that if you don't take challah, it's considered as if you worshipped an idol. Really? How do you get that? One of them is this small mitzvah that most of us don't even fulfill during the year, right? How many of us bake bread? Oh, Susan. A few others, Marcy. Okay, a few. There's always one or two in the room that always are the outliers. I'm going to say, okay, you know what? Who likes? Well, I don't know. Okay, there's always someone in the class, but nonetheless, you bake the bread, you take the chal, you make the blessing. Why would it be considered, if you don't take that little chal and give it to the Kohen, you're considered as an idolater? So I remember the Rebbe once explained that if you take the process of making the bread, not like today you go to the store, you buy the wheat, and you buy the flour, and you make it. But if you start off as a farmer, think about the process of this. It's murder. You got to plow. And don't forget, these were the days before these huge corporations came in with their machines. You had to get a yoke on an ox. Have you ever tried to put a yoke on an ox? What do you think? You think the ox likes it? Like the guy shows up, you say, hey, Blue, what's it called? The Blue, the big ox? What's he called over there? Paul Blund's babe. Okay, hey babe, come here. I'm going to put a yoke on you. Yeah, he'll give you a kick in your tuchus. And you're going to have the yoke on you, not on him. Okay? So you got to get the yoke on the ox. Then you got to start plowing. Okay? You know what that means to plow? And then you got to plant and re-plow and wait. And then you have to winnow. And then you got to thresh and do all of that process. It's murder. Murder. And then finally you have a little bit of grain that you bring into your warehouse. You grind it by hand. And you get a little bit of flour. You're exhausted now. Okay. Then you take the flour, you put it together with water, you knead it. Then who shows up at the door? There's a knock on the door. Who's there? Mr. Cohen. With his hand like this. You go, what? He says, I'm here for my piece. You go, are you nuts? You think I'm going to give you for this? I worked 9 months for this thing. Sweat, blood, tears. This guy, you know what the Cohen did for the whole year? He worked 2 weeks. An average Cohen worked 2 weeks on the whole year, and the rest they studied and taught and did. Okay, all right. They did a lot of other work. They did a lot of other busy, important business. And then he comes to my house. The guy comes to my house when I'm sweating and crying, and I'm only thinking about opening up, making myself a baguette for a sandwich. And this guy comes up and sticks out his hand. He wants a piece of the action. What is God saying to us now? If you don't take the challah, and you don't remember who blessed you in getting this, then what happens? It's idolatry. Because who becomes the idol? Yourself. You become the idol. And that's always been the view of Judaism with wealth. It's always been having this kind of dual relationship with wealth. On one hand, oh no, we want it. No, isn't wealth a test? But poverty is also a test. But what would you rather have? Yes. Everybody would rather have. No, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say that. There are people that, who have decided that they're not interested. They're poor. Okay? I mean, God bless them. God bless them. Fine. But 99.9% of the people, if you ask them, would you rather be tested with wealth or with poverty? They're going to say, test us with wealth. But wealth comes with a tremendous amount of responsibility. Tremendous responsibility. And the Torah knows that wealth is one of the worst catalysts for driving us insane. I mean, listen, I don't have to tell you. Think of families that that have a lot of money. Many times this is a dysfunctional family. Because what the money does, it distorts reality. First of all, the kids grow up to be spoiled. They think, make a bed. Who makes a bed? Well, you're nuts or something? That's what she's for. The housekeeper is to make a bed. Someone has to do work, cut the grass, mow the lawn. It gives a distorted sense of what real life is all about. So the Torah always had this yin and yang, this pull and take idea with wealth. And if you're not careful, it could go off. So for many have sworn off. Many people swore off wealth and said, it's better. Let the people be poor. At least, at least they'll be dedicated to Judaism. Because they're not going to have this issue with money. Because money could literally drive you insane. Do I have to prove it? I mean, you don't know. You open up the newspaper every day. You'll see the richest people are the most insane people. Elon Musk is normal. If Elon Musk is normal, then I'm LeBron James. Okay? Okay, that is if he's normal. The guy's nuttier than a peanut butter jar. Okay? He's a nutcracker, the guy. Yet, the guy, is he successful? By measures of the United States of America, when it comes to financial things, he's the biggest success. He's the biggest. Bill Gates didn't take a day off for 20 years. Okay? The guy worked, and then that's normal. Well, it's also not normal. But he's financially successful. So that's what it is. So we lose focus. Not the Rebbe. No, the Rebbe always said like this. Number one is, let's go to text number 3. If you don't mind. Turn to... No, you stay up there. You don't come down. Sorry about that. Text number 3. What page would that be on? No book. Sorry, Norma. I'll have to get you another one. Next time. Okay?
Page 7.
Okay.
No, page 7.
Okay? The Torah's Is that inviting God into the office?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just read that, what the Rebbe's perspective is. The Torah's perspective on Jewish life is puzzling. Okay, what page is that?
8.
Page 8. Page 8. I'll read it. Norma, you can share with her. Thank you so much. The Torah's perspective on Jewish life is puzzling. It informs us that God chose us from the rest of humanity and spiritually elevated us from regular people. Means that, you know what? Hashem told us at Mount Sinai what? You accept my Torah, you're going to be my chosen people, I'm going to take care of you, you're going to be the apple of my eye, Mamlechas Kohanim. Okay. That creates the impression that we must spend the majority of our time in sacred pursuits. If God gave us the Torah, what does He want us to do? He wants us to keep Torah mitzvahs, right? Studying Torah, performing the commandments, worshiping later in the tabernacle and later in the temple. Why then does the Torah itself establish that the majority of a Jewish individual's life is to be devoted to material pursuits? Now think about it. Even the most, except if you happen to be a rabbi, which God forbid you have picked that profession, don't do that. Don't tell your children to do that either. But if God forbid you happen to be a rabbi or someone that's dedicated in the Jewish community, for the majority of people, work is outside of the Jewish community. If you happen to be an accountant or whatever it is, the majority of work is outside. It's dealing with material pursuits in which there is no distinction between a Jew and anyone else. So you go into the world. Susan is a successful realtor. Her competition is everybody. It's everybody, and what she's selling is physical homes. She's not selling the Beis Hamikdash. I hope, she's selling physical homes. So you think to yourself, why? The explanation. Why is it that God gave us the Torah, and most of our endeavors is not, most of the day is not connected specifically to matters of the Torah? So the Rebbe explains that the explanation is that the purpose for which God created the world is that God desired that we actively turn this material world with all of its corporality and material coarseness into a dwelling place for God Himself, through serving God in this world in accordance with the Torah that He gave us. To achieve this, the majority and the main thrust of our daily service of God is not strictly spiritual activities. You have to daven, you have to pray, and you have to study, and you have to do all that. Yes, but you also have to be out into the world and elevate those things in the world which need elevation. After all, our spiritual activities are comparable to divine service performed by souls before they enter the world and after they return to heaven. Rather, that's what they do. Right? In Gan Eden, when you're going to be in heaven, you're not going to have to worry about, working. You're not going to have a 9-to-5 job. No, you'll be free. Rather, we spend most of our time specifically on interaction with materiality. Therefore, the Torah emphasizes for 6 years, you shall sow your field. The idea is to bring sanctity and divinity down into our fields, the coarse realm of materiality, so as to turn our material and corporal world into a home for God. So think about that for a second, what the Rebbe is saying. That when you go out into the world and you have a job, whatever the job is, you're working, let's say I happen to be dealing with a plumber. You're a plumber, okay? Now, you don't think about a plumber until you need one, right? Who thinks about it? But then all of a sudden, my backyard is stuffed up. Guess what I need? A plumber. Okay, I call the plumber. The plumber comes down. He does his work. Now, to him, he's coming here. Why? Because he wants to be nice to me. Okay, maybe if it's a good plumber, maybe he wants to be nice to me. But he wants to do a job to get paid to go this. If you happen to be a plumber, what Hashem is saying to you is in that plumbing work that you're doing, you are elevating the world by working, b'emunah, trust, you're trustworthy, you're reliant, you're honest, you're a good guy, all of these things. And the work itself is creating. When you fix Hashem's the pipes, and you fix Hashem's drains, or you build something, you are creating during that time God's infinite desire to have a dwelling place in the world. That's what you are accomplishing during your work day. So don't think of it as something outside of the Torah realm. It's not. It's not outside of the Torah realm. It's actually part of the design of what God wanted you to be. If God always wanted us to be angels, He would have created the world that way. He would have, you don't have to work, and you don't really have to eat, and you don't have to sleep. No, He doesn't want that. He wants us to go into the world, and He wants us to do our job the best that we can be. Like, think of a teacher. He goes into the classroom. Now, he goes into the classroom, he has a passion for teaching, but it's also a job. Okay, he goes in there. You could think, oh, you know what? Rather than teaching, I could be sitting at home and learning. I could be bettering myself. I could be davening longer. I could be... No. The fact that you go into a classroom, forget about the influence you have on the children. That we'll get to in a second. But the mere fact that you're in the world, repairing the world and making this world a better place is in and of itself the goal and the desire of God. The goal and the desire of God. So think about this. What the Rebbe is saying, he's taking a perspective on work that is literally flipping it on its head. Flipping on its head. So instead of saying to yourself, oh my God, Monday morning, this is like the worst, the worst thing I got to do. I mean, I got to go back to work and they're going to beat me up again at work and all of that stuff. You say to yourself, you know what? Here is an opportunity for fulfilling God's wish. God, primordially before he created this world, had one desire. What was that desire? To have a dwelling place here. He wanted a garden in this world. Don't ask me why. I don't know why. When I get him he's such a tough interview. I've been trying for years to get him to sit down and to interview him, and I can't. He's slippery. He's slippery. But when we get to see him, when Mashiach comes, we're going to sit down and say, why? You're God. You had everything going for. I mean, what did you need? A bunch of nut-cracking people? I mean, look at this world. Does it look like someone's actually running the ship here? Yeah. I mean, look outside. Does it look like someone's running the ship? No. You even created people that deny you. You have a bunch of atheists down in the world that laugh at you and scoff at you. And this is what. So we don't know why, but we do know that this was his desire, and he gave us the opportunity to fulfill that. Make an appointment with him? That you can do, but he doesn't keep it. That's the problem. But the thing is, and that, my friends, is that everyone has the opportunity to do this every single day, to fulfill that desire. Now, Chassidus, and based upon the Rebbe's teachings and more like, from starting from the Alter Rebbe and the Tanya, explained that every one of us has a destiny. Every one of us has an individual destiny. Only you can fulfill that destiny. So if you happen to be a plumber, you happen to be any job that you get, anything that you get, it was destined. This is for you. This is for you. Now, I'm not saying you can't change careers. Of course, you could change careers, and I'm sure. But the Rebbe's idea was that if you find yourself in this specific place, in this specific time, there's a purpose. There's a purpose for you to go into this office. There's a purpose for Jimmy to go to this particular place and set it up. There's a particular Marcy to go to where she needs to go. Everyone to go to their particular place, because that is where God wants you at that particular moment. And you have the opportunity to make his wish come true. Now, if you were sitting in front of him and he said to you, will you do me this favor? What are you going to say? You'll deny it to him? Of course you would never deny it to him, because he's going to say to you, look, think of everything I give to you. I give you health and wealth and sustenance and this and that. So the Rebbe's perspective is that everything you do is a holy endeavor. Even work is a holy endeavor. Now that is so uncommon to think about that. Now you could say, oh, you know what, of course, to him, it was a holy endeavor because he lived a holy life. But he wasn't saying this for himself. He knew that about himself. He was saying this to me and to all of us here and all of us watching on Facebook, that everything that we do, everything, whether it's eating or drinking, like I mentioned before, a non-dual life is an expression of God's divinity. Now think about living life that way. Think about how if we would do that. You know, all these little nuisances that we have with work, all these little instances that we have at work, they would fall away. What do I care? What do I care? I am here to serve a purpose. If I'm honest, I'm straightforward, I do my job, I get it done, I do my thing, I go home. I've accomplished something that God set out to do. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't grow and keep moving and changing careers, changing businesses. That's okay. But whenever your endeavor is at that particular time, that's where you're supposed to be. I mean, this is revolutionary. I mean, this is absolutely out of sorts to think of it that way. And that's how the Rebbe kept encouraging people. You know what? To go out there, you have a job, do it. Don't worry about all the office politics and all of that stuff. That's only to derail you. That's it, really. Don't worry about all of those things. You have a job to do, you do it, and you are fulfilling God's purpose here on earth. Dayenu. That's it for the next 6 weeks. Goodbye. This one thing Go ahead,
We have
Susan.
a slogan at the office.
Yes.
The purpose of business is to create the perfect life. And the perfect life can be the mitzvahs, it could be whatever, but
Yes,
that's your purpose.
that's your purpose. And just to add to that, yes, absolutely. And just to add to that the perfect life includes the business itself. The business itself, not something outside of the business. Part of the perfect life is where you are right now. Now, it could be there is a point where you have to leave. Yes, you have to leave. You got to leave. It becomes, but one should strive to make that perfect life incorporate what you're doing on a daily basis. It's not something, see, again, it's happiness by destination. Happiness by destination tells us, you know what? If I sell 100 homes this year, or I sell 50 homes this year, I'm going to be able to finally afford to go on vacation. You know what? I tell you, never. No, that's not the way. No, forget about it. Forget about it. You're never going to achieve happiness by destination. When I get there, I'm going to be happy. You know what? I go to high school and I say, oh man, if I can date the prom queen, I am going to be so happy. I'll be the happiest guy in the world. Okay? She's never going to date you. Okay? 0.0. Look in the mirror. Okay? 0.0 chance the prom queen is going to date you. Not because you're a bad guy. You're a good guy. You're a nice guy. She's just looking for the quarterback of the football team. That's all. And because you're 5'4" and Jewish, you're not the quarterback of the football team. Okay? You may be the manager. You may be the supplier. You may one day own a football team and then she'll date you. But right now, in 11th grade, you're just a shrimp that can't throw a football. So forget about it. Now, what do you say to someone like that? You say someone, you're going to wait till she dates you, then you're going to be happy? No. You got to forget about that. You know what? You got to be happy now in what you, in where you are and what you do. And that's what's going to make you happy. Later on, destination happiness. Oh no, if I get this main job, if only I get the promotion. If I get the promotion, then I'm going to allow myself to be happy. No. Because you know what's going to happen? The moment you get the promotion, what's going to be? Someone else is going to move into a bigger office than you, and then you're going to be sick. Why you didn't get the corner office? So what the Rebbe is saying is, don't let that happen to us. Work is part of creating the perfect life. If I know I come home at night, and if I've done a good job at work and honestly put in a day's work, that's it. That's all that matters. That's it. That is the perfect life. Now, I get a check, I pay my bills, I do this. That's what a perfect life is on. And I remind myself constantly over and over again that I have a destiny, and the destiny is to live now as is with where I am. I mean, I can't tell you how anti-establishment this kind of thinking is. Because most of them say, I don't feel good, go to a therapist. Everything is go to a therapist, pay a therapist. How much money we spend on therapy in America? Billions. We spend billions of dollars on therapy. You come to this class, I'm not even charging billions. I'm only charging millions. Okay? For something like this, you go away to a seminar for a weekend for $799. We'll tell you how to be happy. The Rebbe tells you, look, this is all from the Torah. The Rebbe didn't discover this. This is not something that the Rebbe sat down and thought, you know what, he's going to come up with a new way of thinking about work satisfaction. So that, when he went to college, he wrote papers. No, they went back and forth. He published it. No, the Rebbe knew this instinctively because he's connected to the Torah. And when the Torah says to us, you know what, I've given you an opportunity, I've given you a chance to do X, Y, and Z, that's your purpose. That is your purpose. That's what it is. So, some people have the purpose of being teachers, some have purpose of being plumbers, some purpose of serving, in the army. Everybody has a different destiny. And that is something that should make us happy and thrilled that we are able to fulfill God's destiny every day in our lives. Now, the Rebbe also was an extremist when it came to action. He never was impressed when he put out a campaign and people then wrote back, we had a meeting to discuss about another meeting. He said, you think I'm impressed that you had a meeting to make another meeting? The Rebbe was extremely impressed with people that got things done. Tapara da placha. He used to always say, put the axe to the wood. Don't think about it planning, because in the Jewish community, this is our specialty. we have committees and subcommittees and subcommittees and, subcommittees. You can have issues in a congregation, in a synagogue, that will go on for weeks and months in a board meeting of how to put a table in front of the, we're going to have a shul, okay? In the shul, there's going to be a little table that's going to have all of our information. A board meeting can go on for 6 months, how big that table should be, what color the table should be, should it have a tablecloth, should it face north, south, or east, west, should it be there, should it be colored, should it be four legs, should it be insane. And the Rebbe was never impressed, but what the Rebbe was impressed with was those people that went out and did things. You go out there. So the Rebbe's second point about work is about the idea of influencing people around you. Now, there are two types of people when we come to influencers. Number one, we have those people that are very, very comfortable with getting into your business. Like you go on the street, the Rebbe started the Mitzvah Tefillin campaign. They love it. They're on 42nd Street and they're chasing you down and they're going, are you Jewish? Are you Jewish? Are you Jewish? They got no problems. They have this A+ personality, and you know them and you've seen them, and they don't care. They're chase you wherever. Okay? So if the Rebbe says do it, they're the first ones on the I got a grandson that's like this. His name is Mati Weingarten. And he has a personality, and he's going to meet everybody on the street, and he's going to talk to everybody, and that's his personality. Then I got grandchildren, not so much, we're quiet, cerebral, things. So Rebbe understood this. Rebbe understood that not everybody is going to be an influencer. Not everybody's going to walk into their office and say, excuse me, everybody, today is Purim, and I have everything, this, and everybody's going to give out Matanas Levyonim, or today is Sukkot. We're all going to. Rebbe understood that. So those people who can do that, the Rebbe loved them. I mean, there's nothing to talk about. If you're going to be willing to go out there and you bring Hanukkah menorahs to your workers and to your friends, and you bring Shalach Manis, and you do all these things to influence people, this is, you worked your way into the Rebbe's heart. I mean, that was, not the best. But the Rebbe understood also there are going to be people not comfortable with this. We used to go on what they used to call mitzvah tanks when we were students, chase down people to put on tefillin, women to light Shabbos candles, etc., etc. Some were naturals and some were more shy, till they asked somebody, they walked around the block 6 times, they got themselves a soda, then a hamburger, then another soda, then a bathroom break, so they asked 2 people during the day. All right, Rebbe understood that. And not everybody's going to be an outgoing guy. It takes a certain, but Rebbe did believe, and this is true for everybody, the way you purported yourself, that's how you influence people. The way you purport yourself, the way you talk to other people, the way you respect other people, the way you conduct your business, even if you're not an outgoing guy, even if you're not going to be the biggest shouter, but the mere fact that you're in a business in a secular world, and the way you act, and the way the way you dress, dignified, classy, whatever the situation is, that's the way you influence people. And the Rebbe also added that to work, to number 2, that the number 1 spiritual reason for work is, of course, fulfilling a destiny. And, and that's number 1. Number 2 is the influence, the little ripple effects that you have while you're at work. You never know, and it doesn't only mean to Jews. Rebbe was many times spoke about the 7 Noahic codes, that, if you're in a business and maybe many of your co-workers are not Jewish, and you think to yourself, no. Just by the fact that, people ask you questions, they get involved with you, they see you, you have a chance to speak to them. Everybody has an opportunity to talk. I mean, you're sitting around lunchtime. Brian, for example, works in a company. He's probably the only Jew in the company in his warehouse over there. But when it comes to Hanukkah, and they have and Christmas and all this, who's the expert on Hanukkah? Brian. Then Brian, they make special now because they have to, because of diversity. They have to have a Hanukkah party because there's one Jew and they don't want Brian to call in, the ADL or like some law firm. So that for the whole company, they make the Hanukkah party with him, and then he has an opportunity to tell the story and with the latkes and everything. So the Rebbe would be very proud of Brian, because for 200 Vietnamese people that he works with, and Asians, they know now about Judah Maccabee, okay? And what the Jewish people went through. Now, so we think to ourselves now, what is the purpose of that? But we now, after October the 7th, we know now that we are fighting an existential war for the Jewish people. Maybe we don't feel threatened like, God forbid, our brothers and sisters in Israel. But in the United States of America, you win over friends, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 friends that you bring in to our side. You've done. So Brian has exposed Yiddishkeit to people from, Vietnam and Cambodia and Laos that really don't know much about it. But Brian explains it to them. He talks to them a little bit about it. That is what the Rebbe was talking about, that a subsidiary of work is the influence. Shimon, who's a teacher, has all these non-Jewish kids in class, but the way he purports himself and the way they love him, leaves a tremendous impact, not on day one, not on day two, not on year one, not on year two. For 20 years down the line, you talk to his students, they remember Mr. Prado. They remember how Mr. Prado acted. They remember when Mr. Prado said. They remember Mr. Prado put his arm around me. And, when I was down and out, an immigrant kid with nothing, our parents don't speak the language, but someone cared about them. They remember that. And how it costs us how much? Zero. Nothing. Cost us absolutely nothing. So the Rebbe says, think about that. You're sitting in a situation where you can have a tremendous influence of people around you by doing absolutely nothing. We're doing absolutely nothing. Think, which company is going to pay you to do that? Only the government. That's the good. The government will pay you. They'll absolutely pay you to do nothing. Sit there and do nothing. Don't answer the phone. But what do you mean? People are going to go, don't. That's not the DMV. Don't answer the phone is rule number 1. If you answer the phone, they deduct your pay. Okay, so don't answer. And if you do answer the phone, keep them on for at least 45 minutes. Okay? So who will do that? No. So you already have, so remember already showed us number 1 spiritual purpose of work, fulfilling our own destiny. Number 2, spiritual, the influence we could have on others. Either by being out, by talking to others, or just, you don't even have to do that. You just sit there and do your job and be nice to people and speak softly to people, be compassionate, sympathetic. People think, this person is a nice guy. Even if they just say he's a nice guy. That itself is worth it. You've influenced people to do that. We always keep remembering, that we are walking billboards for the Almighty. That's the problem that we did when we took the Torah. We took upon ourselves to be the water carriers for God. So for thousands of years, we have been that, literally on a, what do you call that? When you shoot an arrow, on a bullseye. We have been the bullseye, of everybody looking at us, because we have purported to be ourselves. We've said we are God's chosen people. We want to bring God's message to the world. So do it. So do it now. So you are now a walking billboard for God. How many times did I tell you this story? But remember, the 1970s, there was a television series. There was a bald guy. He was a police captain and liked to eat Tootsie Rolls. Who was it? Okay, thank you very much. We see already who was watching. Telly Savalas. Who loves you, baby? Okay, who loves you, baby? You remember that show, Kojak? Okay, what? New York City Cops. Okay, I told this story 50 times already, but see, it's engraved in my head. So one day, the cops were up against this 47th Street. If you've ever been to Manhattan, it's known as the Diamond District. It's heavily influenced by Hasidic Jews. The beards, the round hats. So there was a thief. They were trying to catch a ring of thieves. So what they did is they sent in undercover detectives, all dressed up as Hasidim. Okay? And Kojak, was on the 2nd floor, and through walkie-talkies, today, of course, more sophisticated, but in those days, they had the earplanes, walkie-talkies, he was able to communicate with them. So, you see them walking down the street, they're like trying to blend in, with the Hasidim, okay? One of them is walking, he sees them, and he sees a newsstand. He moseys over to the newsstand. He starts pursuing the magazines. Takes a magazine that I'm not going to mention. It's not a kosher magazine. And he starts to flip through it. And you hear in an earpiece, Kojak says, "Johnson, put that away. Those guys don't read that." No, so he closes it quickly and he puts it away. That stuck in my head because what Kojak said, "Johnson, put away the magazine because those guys don't read it." was a statement. It was a statement that, you know what, if you're going to dress like a Hasidic guy and you're going to walk with a beard, there's standards that you have to keep up, and that's what we stand for. That's what we stand for. So, you know, and at work, that's what people know you for, that you're an upright, upstanding citizen, that you do the right thing, and that you're careful and you speak carefully and honestly to people. So that's really spiritual reason number 2 for work. Okay, number 3. Why were we given work? Oh, just a small story. The Rebbe was the 7th leader of the Chabad movement. The 4th leader was the Rebbe Marash, Reb Shmuel. This was his father-in-law's grandfather. Okay? So Reb Shmuel lived in the mid-1800s in Russia. He was the head of Chabad in Russia. He was an interesting fellow, an interesting man, and he passed away at a very young age, unfortunately. But one of his stories that he had a chassid by the name of Reb Elia Abeller. And Reb Elia was a merchant, and one day he came to see the Rebbe, and the Rebbe Marash, the Rebbe told him, "I'm very jealous of you." He said, "You're jealous of me? You're such a brilliant man and a leader of people. I'm a simple person. Why are you jealous of me?" He says, "Because you happen to be a merchant. You go into the marketplace and you meet different people. And as you meet different people, you have an opportunity to say a word of Torah to them and inspire them with a word, a good thought. And they get interested and they want to learn more. And every day you have this opportunity, which I don't have. So I'm jealous of you." So this was, again, the same idea what the Rebbe was saying, that when we're in the workplace, we have opportunities galore to be able to influence people. Number 3. Comes to money and charity. Okay? What was our purpose? So our purpose was to be able to give tzedakah. That, you know, part of, and you can, again, once you take home the book, you can read on your own. There's many readings over there. You know, so the Rebbe writes that when we go to work, we make a certain amount of money. Part of that money, the Torah asks us, is to give it away to charity. Asher Tasrena, 10%. Now you got 10% net, 10% gross. That you have to ask your local rabbi. But the Torah wants you to put away 10%. So if you make $1,000, the Torah wants you to take $100 and set it aside. Okay? Now you're not going to be able to do that unless what? You make. Yeah, thank you, Kim. Thank you very much. You make the $100. If you say to yourself, "Nah, I don't want to go, I'm not interested in working," you're never going to be able to perform the mitzvah of tzedakah. And the mitzvah of tzedakah, one should not make a mistake. Because if you say to yourself, "You know what, the mitzvah of tzedakah is only benefiting the one that receives the money," you are so far off course. Because it's not true. The one that's benefiting from tzedakah is you. The Talmud says, more than the rich person does for the poor person does for the rich person.
The mosquito, if it would have bit you, wouldn't have been nice.
No, shakayach. Thank you. No, you don't want someone to buy you. Okay. Okay. Well, again, let's get back to the poor and the rich. Okay? More than the rich person.
He got away.
He got. Oh no! Now you see.
Let's hear it.
Don't get him. Let him go. I tell you, okay, everything is hashgacha pratis. Everything is divine providence. So the doctors say in 1978, when the doctors were in the Rebbe's office, a bee once flew in and it got caught. They wanted to kill the bee, and the Rebbe said, "Please don't kill the bee." The Rebbe told them, "Please take the bee and take the cup outside and let the bee go. Please don't kill the bee." And I mean, to him it was like killing a bee was like taking the neshama of Hashem's creation. But that's nothing to do with a mosquito. It's on my own. No, don't get me wrong. But let's go back to poor and rich. More than the rich person does for the poor person does for the rich person. How is that possible? The poor person is getting the money. What's the rich? The rich person is only giving away his hard-earned money. No. What the poor person is doing is giving the wealthy person the opportunity to do what's right. Why? God knows what to do with the money. He takes the money at the beginning of the year and he says like this: half the money goes to Elon Musk. Okay, right away. Give him half the money. Fine, okay, you get half the money. The other half of the money, he splits around the whole world. Now, why are some people wealthy, some people poor? Because God trusts the wealthy people. He trusts them that they're good managers of the money. Rebbe Machabed Ashirim, the Rebbe, great Rebbe, the author of the Mishnah, he honored rich people. People in the shul would say to him, why do you honor the rich people? What's so special about the rich people? So Rebbe would explain that God honors them. I'm not the one. God honors them by trusting them. He gives you this wealth because he knows and he hopes and he prays that you do the right thing with the wealth. That you do. And what is the right thing to do with the wealth? To give it. To give it. Meaning that a certain percentage of the money goes towards poor people. There's never going to be a time in the world till Mashiach comes when there won't be people in need. We pray every day, please give everybody sustenance. But we know that there's going to be people. A kala has to get married. You want her to come into a house that's empty. Could you imagine your daughter, your son, you're marrying them off. You want them to come in a home where there's no dishes, there's no linen, there's no furniture, there's nothing. Of course not. So you see a poor kala, you want to help her. One of the big mitzvahs, Chanas's kala, is to help. Someone passes away. The family has no money for a burial. God forbid, in your family, you want them to what? To sit outside for 4 days. God forbid. So these are common mitzvahs that we do with tzedakah. Now, the only way that we are able to participate in the mitzvah of tzedakah is to do what? Work. And that's another reason. So if we think to ourselves that, Baruch Hashem, we know we have this and God has blessed us with this and we are able to share it, this is the biggest blessing for us. This is absolutely the biggest blessing for us, is to be able to share God's wealth. But we're only able to do that if we go out there and make. That's why the Rebbe encouraged that when people ask Rebbe, should I increase my business? Because there's a question. Look, if I increase my business, I take on more responsibility, have less time for Torah study, have less time, to be in shul and all of that. The Rebbe said, look. Torah study, you got it. But increase business, if you can do that, do that. Do it. Why? Because the more you make, the more you're able to give, the more institutions are able to be funded, and the more we're able to thrive. You know what? Until Mashiach comes, that's the way Hashem created the world. You need money to run institutions, and money comes from donors. Comes mostly from donors. So the Rebbe said these three aspects, if you think of it in yourself, number one, that you're fulfilling your own destiny in the work. The work itself is your destiny. Number two, the influence you can have. And number three, the tzedakah that you have. You're going to go to work understanding, it's a whole different ballgame. I'm not struggling now. I'm going to work now with an open heart and an enthusiastic way. And I do my work. I come home. I do what I have to do. And I go back the next day and I do it all over again. Why? Because I love it. And people that love work, you know what? I've met many people that love work. They never go to work. Think of a musician. If you're a musician that has a passion for music and you're able to make a living through music, you've never gone to work. You've never been to work one day. Think about that. Not one day have you ever gone to work. What?
Because you're happy doing
You're thrilled. You're thrilled. You wake up in the morning. Beethoven never worked a day in his life. Never worked a day in his life. Why? Because he loved this. He loved this. Now imagine if Beethoven would have been a baker. Imagine if his mother would have said to him, "Come on, little Dick. You think you're going to make money writing the dumb symphonies? Every day on the piano, you're banging away, dummy. No, be a baker. Everybody needs bread. You'll make a living." What would have happened to this world? If Einstein had become a baker, what would have happened? Man, Albert Einstein would have made terrible donuts. Terrible. Because terrible. He would have forgot the time that he put it in. He would have burnt the bread. His head was so far out of everything. Because I'm thinking to myself of the people that we knew. Rabbi Yoel Kahn, we know Rabbi Yoel was the Rebbe's foremost, codifier of his works. His dictator, his scribe. The Rabbi Yoel, he used to walk down the street, sometimes carrying the garbage from his house because his head was in the sky. Like he was thinking about other things. So, when you are able to fulfill your destiny through these three things, through work and through influence and through giving of charity, there's nothing, you're living the greatest life. You're living a tremendous life of purpose. Now, Don't think that the way I'm talking now, there are always going to be bumps in the road. There's always going to be frustrations along the road. We're going to get to that. We have 6 weeks. Today we only started, week number 1. So we only have a few more minutes. So Bob is asking a question. I saw them. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I don't get to your questions. It's so hard to read. The words are very small. My glasses are not working that well tonight. Anyways, number question about retirement, because there comes a time in all of our lives where we say to ourselves, maybe it's time to hang it up. People used to write to the Rebbe, what about retirement? Ay, ay, ay.
No.
Okay, let it put it this way. The Rebbe passed away at 94. He suffered a stroke 2 years prior to his passing, so I'm going to eliminate those 2 years because the Rebbe was incapacitated. But till 92, till 92?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Till 90. I'm sorry, the Rebbe passed away at 92. Till 90, till the 90th birthday, the Rebbe worked every day. There was never a day the Rebbe didn't come into his office until he was 90 years old. No vacation, nothing. So when people asked him about retirement, it was like, I'm sorry to say this, Rebbe, but I have to ask you something really. Could I retire? And Rebbe would say, retire? Are you kidding me? What does that even mean? What does that even mean, retirement? He was never, as a matter of fact, when he was 70 years old, I happened to be at that particular gathering. The Rebbe asked, if you want to give me a birthday present, make 70 new institutions. Create for me 71 new institutions around the world dedicated to my birthday. Of course, the 70 were done in a few months. There was about, who knows how many, maybe 100, 200, and 80 at his 80th birthday. He spoke publicly and he said, people have been writing into me that I should take it easy. 80 years old, maybe you should slow down. I'm only getting going. I'm only getting going at 80. So the Rebbe was but the Rebbe was also a practical person. The Rebbe knew that his stamina and his dedication, it was not for everybody. It's not for everybody because there's only one Rebbe. There's only one Rebbe. We haven't had a leader like this, I'm telling you, since who knows, but Baal Shem Tov's times that had this kind of influence around the world. So the Rebbe was also a practical person. Remember that even if you retire, you got to dedicate your life to something. Just sitting idly and doing nothing, that's nothing. So maybe you don't go to work in the workplace, making a living, but you got to be active. One of the things Rebbe always would decry is the idea that senior citizens in this country were cast aside. And the Rebbe said, think about how much knowledge, how much experience, how much is in there, and we don't take advantage of it. So the Rebbe would always know. So the Rebbe started Teferes Kenim Levi Yitzchak, where he would encourage his followers to organize these senior citizen lunches and study groups, and get people from around the city to come in to participate. Because doing nothing and sitting like this was a non-starter. That's nothing. Because why? Not because it's not healthy. No, because Hashem is giving you an opportunity, and what are you doing with it? Nothing. You're doing nothing with it. So either you're studying Torah, either you're doing mitzvahs, either you're doing something, but something you got to do. I have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that I find, I sit in my office, I talk to a lot of people, and one of the crises is that people don't prepare for retirement. I'm not talking about financially, but psychologically they don't prepare for retirement. I can't tell you how many doctors I've had to counsel. I and nobody have had to counsel because you know what? They come into my office, I'm depressed. Well, of course you're depressed. Why shouldn't you be depressed? 6 months ago, you were king of the hill. You walked into your office, everybody bowed down to you, everyone needed you, everyone called you, everyone looked up to you. Now, you're sitting home, no one's calling you, no one's looking at you. Why didn't you, 5 years ago, try to think about what am I going to do after retirement? But he didn't think about it. So now, he's depressed. Okay, so you know what? The Rebbe was again saying to you, you have an opportunity, you have free time. Look at all the things that you can accomplish. Think, you can teach, you can this, you can that, you can do all of these things. Because being a lady gayer, in Yiddish, you know what a lady gayer is? A guy that does nothing. Mm-hmm. A lady gayer is a guy that does nothing, like you stand outside in the marketplace doing nothing. That was not for the Rebbe. Absolutely nothing for the Rebbe. Okay. A few last minutes, we have to talk about the spiritual aspect of work. Okay? Because the Rebbe was very much into God we trust. Oh, the Rebbe loved this slogan, an American dollar. In God we trust. Okay? And the Rebbe said, you know what? If we would only take that seriously, if Americans would take that seriously and believe that the blessings come from God, oh, what a world it would be. Then, we would respect each other, we would talk nicely to each other, and then, etc., etc., etc. Please turn to number 7. We'll read number 7. Text number 7. If you could find... Oh, page 16. Thank you. Page 16. This is a text. Page 16. 1-6. I received your letter in which you write about your anxiety in regard to the question of livelihood. A guy was writing him, his business was shaky. The Rebbe said, what? You surely know how often our saints have impressed on us the importance of trust and confidence in God, in order that we realize that all difficulties encountered in life are only trials and tests of a passing nature. To be sure, the question of sustenance, of livelihood, is one of the most difficult tests. Nevertheless, God does not subject one to a greater test that he can withstand. As our rabbis expressed it, according to the camel, so is its load. The very trust in God is a vessel and a channel to receive God's blessing. Apart from the fact that such confidence is good for one's health and disposition, and therefore it's also a natural means to the desired end. Here again is an expression of where the Rebbe's non-dualism comes in. We think to ourselves, God is going to take care of our tefillin, but we got to take care of our business. God will take care of our davening, but we got to take care of our store. No, God will take care of the tefillin and your store. Okay? God is the source of all blessings. And when we trust and when we have faith in that, then God says, hey, you know what? Good. I'll bless you. Now, sometimes he makes it a little difficult. He's shaky. You go into a deal and the deal doesn't come through. And you think to yourself, I invested so much effort and so much commodity and so much work into it. The Rebbe says, in God we trust. In God we trust. Whatever is going to be the right thing is going to come out. Just stay the course. Don't say to yourself, you know what? I'm out. Just do what's right. And now, how does that practically work? So, one of the things is Shabbos. Shabbos used to be a tremendous test for most people when it comes to business. You open up a store and you used to write to the Rebbe, especially in the 40s, the 50s, and even today, if you have a retail store, Rebbe, how in the world am I going to keep clothes on Shabbos? You know what? When you go down to 2nd Street, you own a store on 2nd Street, downtown 2nd Street, right? Everyone's familiar with 2nd Street here in Long Beach. It's one of the main drags in Belmont Shore. You go down there. How in the world are you going to be able to close a store on Shabbos? The Rebbe says, this is God's blessing. God is not going to give us the Torah and then give us a challenge. So number 1, be smart. If if you're a Shabbos observer, why are you opening up a store on 2nd Street anyways? Okay, that's number 1. Okay, don't be, you're a chacham from the Manishtan, we would call you, right? You're not such a wise guy to do that. Okay, number 2 is, even if you fall into this business and you have an opportunity of making money which is not kosher, the Hashem is not going to bless that money. You may be smart the first time. Yeah, you get away with it the first time. Maybe you get away with it the second time. But if the Torah says to you, this is not the way we do business, this is not the way we handle things, Hashem is not going to be happy with you. And ultimately, it's going to come back to bite you. So when you say to yourself, you know what? In God we trust, and I really truly believe it, this is the test. This is one of the tests is going to be the Shabbos test. It was much harder in the old days. Today, very few employees are going to put you force you to come in on Shabbos. I myself worked for a short while as a stockbroker. There wasn't even a question. I mean, a guy told me, you take off all the holidays and things you need. What do you think they're going to call me in on Shabbos? I'm not going in on Shabbos. But they know today. It's the same as beards and yarmulkes today. It's much different. But in the olden days, our parents and grandparents during the Depression couldn't get a job. If you didn't work on Saturday, you couldn't get a job. There were many people that worked 6 days, starved, Shabbos, then went back to search for a job for Sunday because they wanted to keep Shabbos and do it. And that's what the Rebbe is saying. In God we trust needs to not only be a slogan, it needs to be a guide in our life. And that can only be done when you live a non-dualistic life, when you believe that God is with you and do that. So there's another test, whether it's true or not. Okay. the Rebbe also demanded something from everybody. Whether if you're a workman, a work person, I don't even know how you say it today, everybody in the workforce. A worker. You're a worker. That's the theme. You're a worker. Okay? If you're a worker, you say to yourself, you know what, Rebbe, I got no time for Torah study. Rebbe said no. I'm sorry. In the 80s, Chabad established what they call Machne Yisrael Development Fund. This was a fundraising group that for many wealthy people around the country would come and participate in meetings and help Chabad, and they would raise money. And I think like the bottom line was maybe in those days $100,000 gift. You could join this exclusive club. And then one of the benefits was that from once or twice a year they would all meet in New York, and the Rebbe would come out to meet them, and then everybody could come by and have a few minutes with the Rebbe. That was one of the maybe the biggest benefit of it. Now, these are mostly secular wealthy people, a few religious, but mostly secular, non-religious people, and they would come to the Rebbe, and they would speak to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe, when he spoke to them, if you read it, it's like so interesting, because usually when you have this group of these wealthy people, you like kind of tailor your talk to make sure that they like what you say. You kind of are impressed with them. The Rebbe was not impressed. I mean, even one time I remember someone came by dollars, and it was from the Federation of New Jersey, and they said the Rebbe they now dedicated $250,000 to Chabad of Northern New Jersey. The Rebbe said, "You think I'm impressed with $250,000? I thank you for the gift. I expect much more. I mean, the Rebbe was not. You couldn't buy. So when you read the things, the Rebbe had an agenda what he wanted to say. See, I would say, oh, thank you a million times. You're the greatest guys. You're the best guys. We love you. And what can I do for you? No. The Rebbe was not like that. The Rebbe had an agenda. He wanted to say something, and he wanted to say. And so I wanted to just read text number 9. What the Rebbe said to these. Okay? And this is American secular businessmen. So I think you find that on page 19, right? Yeah. 19. Although the Rebbe says, how does he start? A businessman should dedicate a portion of their time each day to Torah study. Meaning, you're talking about people that hardly know anything about Judaism. I mean, you're talking, many of them, went to Hebrew school, maybe, mostly many non-religious. But Rebbe said, no. Every one of you must dedicate part of your time to Torah study. Although this eats into the time that's usually dedicated to work, not only will this study not detract from their overall success, but to the contrary. The Torah study clears and refines the mind to be able to make better business decisions with greater clarity and efficiency. It calms the spirit, leading to greater success in business and greater happiness in life. So you think of chutzpah. Think about this. Here comes a 50-year-old multimillionaire from somewhere in Minneapolis, comes to the Rebbe. He's expecting the Rebbe to give him a bracha and say a thank you. All of a sudden, the Rebbe starts giving him advice. Not only in advice in the secular world, in business advice. You want to be more successful in business, man? Start studying Torah. What are you doing? What is Torah? Start studying Torah. This phenomenon is expressed clearly in the Torah itself. If you go in my way, fulfill my commandments, I will provide rain in its optimal time. When we dedicate time for Torah studies, we are guaranteed divine blessings for success in a way that is optimal without stress or worry. The Rebbe knew, and he saw in each of these people the ability to become better Jews. So yes, thanks for the money. It's great. I'm very happy with the money. Don't get me wrong. But I worry about your soul. And your soul needs to be connected to Hashem. And the more your soul is connected to Hashem, the more successful you're going to be in business, and the more better decisions you're going to make in business. The guys think to themselves, who's this guy? He thinks of himself as a professor at Wharton School of Economics in Philadelphia. Who is this Rebbe? Come over here, starts giving us advice in business. But that was the Rebbe. The Rebbe never missed an opportunity to strengthen somebody in their commitment to Yiddishkeit, because he lived this non-dualistic life. He knew that connecting to the Torah, connecting to the Jewish people is the root of success. And I don't care if you happen to be Howard Schultz from Starbucks or Zuckerberg from Facebook. I don't care who you are. Your success comes, whether you realize it or not. I don't care whether you realize it or not. But if you're standing in my 4 cubits, if you're in my presence, this is the message that I have for you. I mean, it was unnatural to listen to that, to hear that the Rebbe, was so consistent with his image, with his mission. He doesn't care if you're a billionaire. Well, he's a billionaire. Well, that impresses me that you made $1 billion. Or you made $10 billion. Who cares about that? I care what's inside over here. What's in your soul. What's in your heart. That's what I care about. You can make $10 billion and be the biggest schnook in the world. Well, I'm going to be impressed by your schnookness. Okay? By your schnookness. All right. That's a new word. That's a new word. There's schnookness. Okay. In 1990, I happened to be running the Hebrew Academy here for a short while, and we were under financial stress. We're always under financial stress. Always under financial stress. But it was a stressful year. And I happened to go into the International Conference of Shluchim, and I decided that when the dollars come, I'm going to ask the Rebbe for a blessing, personal blessing. I'm going to take a minute. My heart is beating. I know they're going to try to drag me away. But I'm just going to say for 2 seconds, I'm just going to lean into the Rebbe's ear and just tell him, you know what, we're having tough times. Just a bracha from the Rebbe. Okay. So you got to gear yourself up. Got to talk to the Rebbe. It's not so easy. I'm going to mumble around. As they're getting closer, finally it's my turn. I go up to him, he gives me $1. I lean into him and I say, Rebbe, I'm from the Long Beach Hebrew Academy. We're going through tremendous stress. I need a bracha. The Rebbe says to me without thinking twice, he says, what I want you to do is put a tzedakah pushka in each classroom. That's going to bring you great blessings. And here another $1 for the things. Okay, I went there. We put the tzedakah pushkas in each classroom. It got a little easier. Fine. Great. We finish off the class with tzedakah pushkas, which the Rebbe encouraged everybody to have a tzedakah box in their workplace. Why? Because number one, if you listen to the whole class, you know that he is so consistent. The Rebbe would say this tzedakah box reminds us that it is our responsibility to share. It is also a responsibility to help others. It's also a responsibility to always remind ourselves that the blessings comes from God. All of these things are triggers. Today we talk about triggers. Everybody's getting triggered. These were triggers around hundreds of years ago. We were getting triggered, but those were positive triggers. You put a tzedakah pushka in your house. You put a tzedakah pushka in your workplace. You put a tzedakah. Some people have in their cars, a little pushka, everywhere they go. And what is the demand? Demand to put a nickel, a quarter, $1 inside. It's not great demands, but it's a mindset. What the Rebbe was trying to accomplish is to get you to think constantly about who you are and what your purpose is in the world. And if we could remember that, if we keep going over and over again and saying to ourselves that, you know what, I'm ashreinu matayv chalkeinu. How lucky I am that I am in this position, that Hashem chose me from the billions of people to be able to fulfill His goal here on earth myself. Just like we used to say when we were at a Farbrengen, ashreinu matayv chalkeinu, we were squashed when the Rebbe, like if you see that picture up there, the Rebbe's leading a Farbrengen, our dear friend Hal Goldblatt, they took that picture and he gave it to me. There was another one. We were squashed like this, but we were thrilled. We were so happy because we felt we were in the presence of someone that is special, that Hashem sent to us as a gift to the world, and how lucky we are. So when we woke up in the morning, it wasn't a burden to do the Rebbe's, whatever the Rebbe wanted. It was an honor to do what the Rebbe wanted. It was a thrill to do what the Rebbe wanted. The Rebbe never took the credit himself. You look through all the 300 volumes, rarely did he ever speak about himself. It was always about you. Jonathan Sachs once wrote, there are many leaders become great leaders because they get people to believe in them. Rebbe became a great leader because he made us believe in ourselves. He took a schnook like me, put me here in Long Beach to think of myself as a rabbi. Who's that? Nobody. Come over here. No, you're okay here. He put a guy in Kathmandu. He took another guy. You go to Peru. You took Rabbi Kuhn and said, you are the governor of California. You are the boss of California. He took it seriously. Okay? You are the boss. And everything else. He took all of these people and made them feel that they were important. The Rebbe gave significance. And not only to the people that were from, but to everybody that walked by, he gave them significance because he looked at us as we are the leaders, not him. We are the leaders of the Jewish people. We are the leaders of the world, and expecting that when you believe that, you live a different life. And that's just one small aspect. Next week we're going to get into something I think that is really, so work is important, of course, because it fulfills. But next week it's about families and bliss and how to live a wholesome family life. And that's something that's, we're going to feel how the Rebbe is going to help us do that. Anyways, let me say goodnight to the, I'm sorry if I didn't get to your questions. Maybe I'll reread the comments and get back to you on a personal level. Otherwise, thank you very much for tuning in. We'll see you next week at 7:30 Tuesday evening.